Oh, I just got the beginning of that sweet lo-fi beat. Hello everyone. This is me, your friend Carlz, with another week of comic book talk. And well, I've been saying the past 2 weeks how I haven't until now have read One World Under Doom, the ending of it. So I'm gonna do like a quick review, not only of that, but of the whole event. I think there's, of course, as in most things, with a lot of options, there's like a tier list of things that a character can do or like meanings that a character can have. In the case of Marvel, I I've said it before, like most of Marvel villains are kind of like not bad, but like they have like a bunch of them, and many of them are so irrelevant. But there are some of them that are up high on the tier list that always have to do something important whenever they appear, and that one was Doom. So when One World of Doom came about, what everyone was talking about and the shock of it at the beginning was, of course, the classic world ending, world domination kind of scenario. The scenario that it's made for events and Avengers and whatnot. And that was all good and dandy because it's like an event, it's gonna be big and massive, right? But as the event goes on, it morphs into not only a commentary on Doctor Doom, but using Doctor Doom to reflect on current affairs, not only in the US but in the world. So I'm gonna try to be as little spoilerish as I can, but it touches on world politics and manipulation, conspiracy, authoritarianism. Like it's all there. It's all there, and of course, again, that's all good and dandy. It's how it's supposed to do. You're supposed to update your characters to be more relevant to the current events. But then, the latter half and towards the end of the event, it turns into this, once again, character sort of exploration on Doctor Doom. And I've been one to say that Doctor Doom was not necessarily boring, but since he was Iron Man and he had that really streak of being a good guy, since those times, I felt like Doctor Doom was just pushed back into classic, just overall villain position. But One World of Doom was tempting to do something a little bit more, and I think it did. As I said, these villain characters in Marvel, they are not really allowed to change that much. If you're not allowed to change, what is like your input to the general either narrative or story of your current storyline, like in this event, or in general? What is your purpose? Like probably the biggest bad guy in Marvel history, being Thanos. He's always had this almost philosophical question to him about his obsession with death. There's like so much, you could say, metaphors, ideas, and like just overall things to think about when you think about someone who is obsessed with death, who may or may not appear as a persona, as a human. No, not a human, as a person. Yeah, as a person. But anyways, as One World Doom ends, you realize that even if these characters are unmovable because they have to, there are parts of them that have been built towards the years that are deeply enjoyable because they give them this subtlety that a villain shouldn't. I mean, it's not that it shouldn't have, but they often don't show it. You see, the point is, these villains, they are not subtle villains mostly because they need to be ready to come back and just be bad guys. They need the capacity to come back as bad guys, do bad shit, and having no one like challenge them for that. Like, oh, weren't you like a good guy before? Which, by the way, is something that almost did not happen after Doctor Doom stepped down from being Iron Man. In that whole story arc, where Doom reconnects with his like the ghost of his mother, and he discovers part of his tragic past, sort of challenging him into like seeing like, oh, okay, why am I a bad guy? Since then, the soft reset he had was radical, almost as if it was a hard reset. Just went from hero to no, it's not hero to zero, hero to villain. I don't know if that saying exists. But as the one world the Doom ends, like unavoidably ends in like classic comic book manner, which is a mix between like a Netflix show ending and an abrupt ending. Most events, especially Marvel, they end like that, like abrupt and just serving as a platform for what comes next. In this case, is the whole new story arc for Doctor Doom, uh, potentially Fantastic Four, which we're talking later. Um, like everything is just a platform for something else. But as I said, to make a story about these villains good, you need to tap into something about them that transcend them as just villains and turn them into persons. And I think in the end of One World of the Doom, they did that to perfection. I said how hyped I was for the end of it, but not for the last issue of it, but for like the previous issue. The setup was great. The setup was great, and it was a setup for another setup. But I think ultimately, in comics, in this sort of comics, you can say things about like, I don't know, death, dying, rebirth, beginnings. You can always play down, like way down, all of these like epic statements, which in real life wouldn't be that washed down. You can just say in real life this person dies, and don't give a shit about it, or think it's a minor thing to do. In a way, comic books have downplayed and sort of relativized, made relative the concept of death so often, but at the same time, they challenge us to see what death means. In a way, if dying would be irrelevant, so what does that say for life? You know what I mean? So, without spoiling, the ending of One World Under Doom was a comic book event ending, but it was deeply appreciated for what it means, for the stories that come after, and for the character of Doctor Doom himself. You know, I obviously had like way greater expectations on it. Like the setup, as I said, was great. It put you into this mind state. Oh, this is gonna be epic. Yeah, it wasn't that epic, but it was appropriate. That's what I have to say. So I leave at least curious, which in these type of comic books is the best thing you can get out of an ending like this. Like already engaged for what comes next, with a little bit of like a sprinkle of seasoning for the character, something that is gonna come to haunt them later, but doesn't change them ultimately. And I think that's the brilliance of a good editor and good writers. They can sort of move in this spectrum of things that they can be important but not as important. They can be transformative but not as much. They keep the things going while not necessarily changing them, but giving you some flair. I guess that's the way I can say it. But anyways, now the One World of Doom is over, people can go and read it and have their own opinions overall I enjoyed it. So, what's up for this week? Let's dive right into it. Give me. So this week had a lot of. I could have done a lot of uh, update sections. I felt like there was nothing like really new that I wanted to recommend or that I was excited for. I could have done a whole episode on just updates, and most of these are gonna be updates. But again, what I have to say about Absolute Green Lantern is something really particular. Um, the John Mullane in the regular DC universe, this Green Lantern that was sent to the far sector and had a lot of issues with representation back, like in deep space, now it's being completely built into the character. And for some reason, besides Jon Stewart, which I have made no secret of, like saying that he's my favorite one, I felt like they use this Absolute Green Lantern to bring back sort of like the human side of it. By this I mean like give a character a human context and then throw the supernatural over it and make it reflect on what they are as people. They can't do that as much like in the main books, because we already have, like, if you talk about Green Lantern in the main books, you already have like a bunch of baggage of multiversal emotional spectrum, and like there's just so much baggage. So all of these absolute books have done this a little bit, like this kind of like not back to roots, but like telling the story of these heroes in a different manner. And I think Absolute Green Lantern has completely nailed it on the last issues by bringing John Mullane's personal life like right into the story. It's almost like the Green Lantern and the powers have moved into a second plane. Like they are like a secondary issue. Basically, the supernatural, as I said, it's just made there to bounce against these characters' lives, how they interact and how they live as human beings. So it's always nice to that I acknowledge this and like say, okay, like sometimes we go way too overboard on the fantasy, like way too overboard on, like, I don't know, the comic book narratives, and using this absolute brand to retell these stories from this perspective. Well, I can't recommend it enough. And I think this is probably the third time I recommended Absolute Green Lantern. I love it. Next. Okay, this is a number one worth. I don't know if it's worth. I ended up making this episode like sort of leaning into the Marvel magic side of it. As I mentioned before, and they already teased it, already they announced it. So Scarlet Witch is the next Sorcerer Supreme, and this is the follow-up of Doctor Strange. Was it Sorcerer Supreme of Asgard? But okay, this is the second story arc for Doctor Strange adventures in Asgard. The first one was quite interesting because it was sort of like a detective story. I wasn't completely drawn into it because I've never been like that much of a fan of like the mystic Asgard side of Marvel. But why I think people should read Doctor Strange, this new story arc, because I think low-key they are sort of not low-key. I think they are straight up doing it. They are revamping the magic area of Marvel in some way. If you take Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, and what they're doing with Wiccan that we were talking in a short, in a short time, yeah, they are doing this to kind of like revamp the magic area. So, out of mere curiosity, if you're into like the magic side of Marvel, or maybe into Doctor Strange, I've been like badly influenced by Marvel into like feeling having so much. I mean, to rivals by having such like negative feelings for so many of these characters. Doctor Strange is one of those. I hate that guy in the game. But in the comics, he is in a transition phase, and I think one of the great things about this new number one is that it saves you the trouble of reading Doctor Strange of Asgard or Sorcerer Supreme of Asgard. It really does. It's a great jumping point, and as I said, I suspect there's magic afoot in many of these books. So, if you wanna find out the whole story on why does Wanda become the Sorcerer Supreme and what's going on with Doctor Strange, this is a perfect jumping point for you. Doctor Strange number one. Next. So this is another book I talk a lot because I just love it. And what I want to say about this new volume, it's not about a new volume, it's a new story for the Fantastic Four, continuing Ryan North's run on it. I don't really see the you can say like the effects of One World Under Doom, even though they were like clearly interlinked. So there's two things that I want to see in this book moving forward. Apparently, it was already planned before this, but it has to. I mean, before One World of Doom. But to me, Ryan North's run, as I said before, it has been like just separated stories, like little cute stories of fantasy and sci-fi. Yeah, of fantasy in general for the Fantastic Four, which is what I love about the characters. But now they are teasing something important, like something new about the Future Foundation. This is gonna be like they're like teasing that it's gonna be epic, you know. I don't know how to say it. The thing is, I need to re-recommend the Fantastic Four because I have a personal desire of seeing more of the repercussions of One World Under Doom on this book. I know that it's not necessarily the case. It might have been written and done before the event, so I'm not sure. But at least Ryan North and Humberto Ramos's they are like top of their game. So even if the event has no reflection on the on this main book, I don't know. It's still the Fantastic Four, but I guess I'm just recommending it on a wish, in a personal wish, to keep on being engaged by the story of One World Under Doom, which is how this thing works, right? This is how it works. You get engaged by something that happened like before, and you're thinking, okay, maybe it's gonna continue with these characters because these are the characters involved. I don't know. I hope it does, but otherwise, it can be another cool Fantastic Four story. So it's worth it, anyways. Speaking of events, I haven't yet read the new Hulk, which I've been sort of. I talk about it like so much. But suddenly they say that they're gonna release a Hulk book by Ryan North again. And of course, we talk about Ryan North as the one behind One World of Doom, Squirrel Girl, and Fantastic Four. He's been all over the place. But the thing about Hulk Smash Everything and why I'm interested in it, it's not only because of Ryan North, because I think, and this is a great if, I think they're releasing this more lighthearted book to contrast with the heaviness of the main one. That's, of course, is a personal interpretation. But this is the way I see it. The other one is gonna be so not extreme, but like, it's gonna be so dark that they need to release something lighthearted, and there's few people that can do that as Ryan North. So that is my idea. So the combination of elements that makes me want to read this are completely unrelated to the book itself. It's the idea that it would be um, sort of like a companion to the darker main one. Is the idea that maybe reading a light-hearted Hulk book, it'd be funny. Is the idea of whatever Ryan North has done before, you know? Personally, I have no idea what the book is about. So that's another way of choosing what to read, right? A mix of curiosity and external elements. Hulk smash everything, I guess. I hope he matches my expectations. Haha. Next. Another update. In issue 1 of Knightfight, we had this is not an update, as I said. We had Batman like going out of time into the future as part of the KO event, like where like time and dimensions are like warped, so anyone can be in different time periods or something. But anyways, the main Earth Batman is in a future where like he fucked up, and Dick Grayson is Batman once again. Here's the thing: you can say that has happened before, which it has, but the strange focus they have in Knightfight is so peculiar because I don't know. Batman is a character that is constantly reminded of his flaws, especially by his peers, and especially by his family. And I guess in a way, I'm a sucker for it. I said it before. I'm a sucker for family dynamics, and if you're gonna have Dick Grayson fighting Bruce Wayne, that is something that is always gonna hit me in the feels. And what they did with Knightfight is took that to the extreme. You know that in the main books they can never go too extreme because these are characters that need to interact with each other on a daily basis. But if you use the context of an event to push them into like a little bit more extreme reality, I'm gonna eat that with a spoon. Dick Grayson trying to I don't know, make Bruce Wayne realize all of his blame and like just like shoving it onto his face, all the bad things he's done. Even though this is great and this is something that I really like, at the same time, as I said, it's not something that has happened like just once. It keeps happening. It's almost like a leitmotif for Batman. Just keep fucking up and keep being like challenged by his closest friends to like, come on, man. But you're always gonna be Batman. So that's what brings you all the way back to Tom King's run and Batman's marriage with Catwoman, right? You're always gonna be Batman. I guess that's a fair reason for people to get fed up with the character. That's fair. That the cyclical thing that he does is gonna repeat once again, just with different character designs and like with different drawings in a different context, but it's gonna be the same. Me personally, I still enjoy it. And that's sort of like a mechanic they use with the DC's Trinity, which means Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Just keep repeating these concepts and not necessarily updating them, but just feeding you the same sort of narrative conflict as these like avatars of ideology see themselves in different situations. It's nice. I mean, and that's better than I've seen Batman in the event. It can leave the space free for other characters to shine in KO as he does his thing on Knightfight. It's pretty good. Next. I don't understand this book. Uh, it says that it's like part of a preparation for the ultimate end game that is coming up in like when, like January or something. And I don't know. It's like these characters, the ultimate guardians, are gonna like go through time and like I don't know. They're like recruiting. I don't know. I don't know. I think that it's either this thing is either ending or it's not. So I think it's a little too late. What is that saying? Too little, too late. We are way too close to the end game. We're too close to the ending, and you're gonna tell me like, oh, now we're gonna introduce a bunch of more Ultimate Universe characters for them to appear and just die in a month. I don't understand. I don't understand, and to be honest, I'm a little bit of hesitant on recommending or reading this one because it feels like too convenient. We already all know that the Ultimate Universe is ending, this current iteration of it at least. We already know it's ending, but they tease you, oh, we're gonna show you a bunch of characters in the Ultimate Universe that we haven't shown you before. And why would I be engaged into knowing about these characters? You know? Unless there's like a part of it that it will be like, oh, but these characters are gonna be relevant later, or they're gonna be saved somehow. They're gonna, I don't know. Is half emotional manipulation, half opportunism. But I'm so curious either way. I'm so curious. So that's why I think I might end up checking it out. I'm just so curious about the Ultimate Universe ending. That's just how it is. So new characters, I guess I gotta know. But I need to throw some shade into it, and I'm like, yeah, this is way too convenient and even sort of halfway cruel to be released this deep into the ending of the Ultimate Universe. But anyways, Ultimate Universe 2 years in. If you wanna get more up close and personal with characters about to die soon, this is your chance. Next. I'm not gonna talk about this particular issue or recommend The Walking Dead. I'm using this as a opportunity to talk about The Walking Dead in general. This is the end of the All Out War story arc, of course, where they fight Negan. And I gotta say, I've never read the books before. I'm reading it now in the deluxe version, and I'm surprised to see how different it is from the series. You know, when the series was going on, you couldn't have but have these comments of people that have read the comics and go like, "Oh, they did this, they did that." The one thing that I have completely seen and agreed with after reading the book is how much filler and how much longer they intentionally did the series. I can see that frustration because the comics are so fast paced. It's extremely fast paced. It's like, I don't know, in by this point in time in the series they were like 5 years in, and some things that in the series take like 4 episodes in the books just take half a page or something. Well, I'm exaggerating, but that's the point. So what I want to say about The Walking Dead in particular, given that it has become the premier zombie narrative by all the elements it mixes in, I want to say that that I think I enjoy the series a little bit more. I don't know. As I saw the series before reading the book, I'm like, okay, but I would enjoy to see this a little bit longer and in a more dramatized way. You know, it's strange. I don't know if other people that saw the series before reading the comic has a similar opinion. It's like, of course, like the okay, it's not a spoiler anymore, but the scene where Negan kills Glenn, which was such a big deal in the series. Everybody talked about it. It was in every news, like because the series by that point was in its peak of popularity. In the comic books, it's so fast. If I hadn't seen the series before, I wouldn't have felt anything for Glenn in the comic books. The amounts of time and scenes he spent with Rick, or like that connection Glenn sort of achieved with Rick in the series, that dramatic sort of friendship they had, it's not the same in the books. It just isn't. It's faster, it's more fragmented, they don't get that much time together, so in the end, in the books, it's just more like not a metaphor, but like a symbolic thing. When Negan kills him, it's like a symbolic declaration of war or intention, and Negan's and the Savior's character. That's it. But in the series, it's drama. You know, the other characters, they see him, and they no, it's not enunciate, but they show their emotion, and you can see how long you've been with this character. It's a whole different thing. But anyways, that this is just my underhanded way of talking a little bit of The Walking Dead in general. Book wise, if you haven't read it, I think Deluxe is a great way of reading this, because The Walking Dead, the original run, I think it's not that long. It's like 300 issues or something. So there's nothing to do now. It is the premier zombie like reference for everybody. So might as well go and read it. Next. This is the other part I was gonna say about the magic side. The other event that was way more underwhelming than One War Under Doom was Imperial. Sorry, Jonathan Hickman, but Imperial was really underwhelming for me, and it was almost strictly a setup for whatever's coming up next. And whatever is coming up next, in this case, is Wiccan the Witches Road. And as I said, they are doing some magic shit. The Witches Road, of course, is completely related to the Scarlet Witch story and the Scarlet Witch's power as the Scarlet Witch. There's a lot of lore involved comic-wise in the Scarlet Witch background. She's just not just a witch. It is some, I don't know how to summarize in between the dark hole in between and what it means to be the Scarlet Witch. It's like a title that sort of leads you with like a representation of magic, but you're not the Sorcerer Supreme, blah 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 blah. But the Witch's Road is an important thing. Wiccan is going through that at the same time that Wanda is becoming the Sorcerer Supreme, and Doctor Strange is doing his shit on Asgard. So this is a whole magic like cosmos. Yeah, this is like a whole magical subcosmos of stories that, to me, they are gonna be interconnected somehow. So I'm deeply interested in how they're gonna do it. I think Wiccan is a great character as well, and of course he's bringing all of the baggage from the end of Imperial. Hulkling is not Emperor anymore, and so it's gonna be about character development as a fallout from Imperial. Like, for them being such an important part of Imperial, in the end almost nothing happened with them. So you can scratch several itches. The fallout from Imperial, the magic element in the Marvel universe, what else? What happened with these characters? So there's a lot of elements that make this book interesting, and the reason why I am definitely checking it out. I like the characters. I'm interested in what happened after Imperial. I'm curious about what's going to happen with all the magic elements in Marvel with these characters, that I believe is gonna be somehow interconnected. If this was just a Wiccan story of him like going into New York and like living his life, it wouldn't be that interesting. But if it's Wiccan Witches Road, it's telling that it's gonna have something to do with magic, with the magic element in Marvel. So everything is in there. Highly interesting. There's I avoided most spoilers. I don't want to read anymore because I want to take this not deep dive, but just a regular dive into magic, into Marvel's magic side, for what it's worth, with these hopefully interconnected titles. Wiccan Witches Road. Next. I don't think I talk about Kelly Thompson's current run of Birds of Prey, which is ending now with issue 28. I have mixed feelings about it. I think they used the Birds of Prey book to highlight some of the not lesser but like less known women heroes in DC. It's strange because it is an all female, all woman team up. That's how that has always been the case, I think. And of course, the main characters being Barbara Gordon and Black Canary are integral part of it. But this run has had like I don't want to say like a hard ass or like highly critical, but it has been too lighthearted for my taste. It has been like a really fun, lighthearted ride, but it had so many moments where some of these characters' relationships. Come on, you fucking bike! Sorry, there's a loud bike going off outside my window. There were so many moments during this run of Birds of Prey that it seemed that we will have some of these characters' stronger relationships coming to light, but in the end, they always got into the backseat to the more like the main story, which, as I said, is not like none of them were like really that strong in a sense of impactful. And I don't mean to say that all the books need to be impactful, but I think it's just a taste thing. I thought it was just too lighthearted. I thought it would go deeper in an emotional sense at some point, especially with some of the, as I said, some of the characters' relationships, if it's among themselves or like against the main stories. But it has been fun. That's the way I can summarize it. I guess I chose to talk about this book this week just to say that that I liked it. A light-hearted book is always good, but I'm sort of disappointed. I guess now that I think about it, one of the things that as I'm saying, I wanted characters like Barbara Gordon, which is one of my favorite characters in DC, to do something important. But then you remember they announced a solo book for her. Maybe they are just leaving the really hard-hitting stories for that book. Who knows? But if you want a lighthearted book with really well-written female characters, Birds of Prey is ending now, so you can probably get the trade when it comes out and just read it. It was all good fun, but don't expect. I don't want to say don't expect too much because that sounds mean. Just don't expect like the high octane emotion that sometimes you want to get from these characters. That's the best way I can describe it. Next. This is my book of the week. This is the final arc for Briar, called Briar's Night's Terror, written by Christopher Canwell. It was a pretty famous book because it was the retelling of the which one was it? Like Snow White? I keep confusing Snow White with like the Cinderella, like all of the old princesses. But here the point is, she never woke up from the curse. Never found the true love. Never had like the Disney princess traditional scenario. So during the whole first run of Briar, this is just a character that gets thrown into the deep end, like struggles, and it's like if we want to talk about intensity, let's try and get some tea. The first Briar book was that it put into perspective all of the tropes of princesses in general. Not only the typical, like, oh, this is gonna be like a dame in distress, let's challenge that. That's kind of like the easy thing to challenge. But the big question that Briar did when it came out was, to me, asking questions. Not only deconstructing the tropes of princesses in general, but asking the questions like, if one of the sources of happiness for a princess is finding true love, what would that mean? Not in like reality or something, but what does that mean? And then I propose you a series of alternatives to that as an answer to that reality. These are all the possible answers that you haven't really thought about it, because you are like taken over by the traditional princess tropes. So it's not just challenging traditional princess tropes in not necessarily all hits or not necessarily all original ways, but it's about asking questions. And this is it's gonna be the last volume of Briar, and now it has completely taken its own shape, and it's gonna go full on into its own story. So Briar it's gonna end on its own terms. I'm feeling that this final story is gonna be less about criticizing the tropes, as I say, or challenging the establishment, and it's gonna fall right into its own story. Because that's the only way you can properly end something, in my view. Just to follow your own story. You already did all of the challenging, and now you're gonna end up on your terms. This is what this book was about. This is the not the good guys and the bad guys, but this is the main forces and the antagonist forces, and this is how we're gonna end it. I really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward for it to end. And I don't mean that in a mean way. It's just like some things. For something to be completely good, it needs to end well, right? I don't think that's an absurd thing to say. For something to be completely good, it needs to be good at the beginning. You can have some so-so moments in the middle, and then end up in a banger. So Briar's Night Terror by Boom Studios. The last story arc for the highly critically acclaimed series Briar, a retelling of the classic princess stories in a, well, just overall cool way. And that's my week. I'm gonna keep thinking about Doom for sure, for the foreseeable future. I'm gonna keep thinking about the Fantastic Four, and these are things that have taken over my mind. But I keep saying, like, we are like reaching the end of the year, and now we're literally on December, so I don't know, man. I don't know how to feel about the end of the year. All I know is that even if the year ends, the stories don't. And that is the main reason why we keep reading comics, right? Deep down, we never want these stories to end. So somehow when they give us questionable endings, perhaps is what we always wanted. I don't know, man. But anyways, see you all next week, and keep on reading. Is that my catchphrase? I didn't like it. So see you all next week. Be good to yourself. Bye bye.